Chapter 10. The Science of Mind Power. The human brain is at the center of the quest to release yourself from the matrix, as this invisible matrix prison in which people are conditioned to reside exists within our brains. In this chapter, we'll explore recent scientific discoveries of brain function and some scientific terms explaining how our miraculous brains work. Let's start by taking a quick look at the brain, its many cool parts, and how they function. The medulla oblongata. The medulla arguably performs the most important function of the brain. Its functions are to keep you alive, as it deals with the involuntary subconscious autopilot tasks that don't involve conscious thought. It controls and regulates the operations of breathing, digestion, and keeping your heart beating. As a part of the brainstem, it helps convey neural info from the brain to the spinal cord. The cerebellum. The cerebellum is extremely important in that it is in charge of everyday voluntary functions given their marching orders from the conscious, active mind, such as walking, talking, balance, and all purposeful motor functions and muscle coordination. The hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is responsible for motivational behavior, such as hunger and thirst, and regulates our body temperature. The amygdala. The amygdala is the center for motivation and emotional behavior. It's responsible for the response of memory of emotions, especially fear. The hippocampus. The hippocampus is involved in the storage of long-term memory and emotional responses, which includes all past knowledge and experiences. The thalamus. The thalamus helps regulate a person's sleep and wake cycles. It registers and receives information being relayed to the brain related to vision, hearing, taste, and other bodily sensations, and it sends these signals on to the cerebral cortex. The thalamus in many ways serves as a relay center to the brain. The pons. Besides the medulla oblongata, your brainstem also has a structure called the pons. The pons serves as a message station between several areas of the brain, especially the cerebrum and the cerebellum. The pons also plays a key role in breathing, sleeping, and dreaming. The brain. Okay, now let's look at the left and right hemispheres of the brain. For people who wonder why in politics the left-wing parties are considered liberal hippies who help single mothers and protect the planet, and why right-wing parties are considered to be pro-corporate big business and special interest groups, we need to look no farther than the functions of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. The two hemispheres can be compared to steering a sailboat, in that if you want the boat to go right, you have to push left on the rudder, and if you want to go left, you must push right on the rudder. It can be confusing, believe me, as I incurred some harsh comments and fists in the air when I almost steered my friend's sailboat into another sailing out of Granville Island, one nice sunny day when they let me captain the boat for a brief stint. After the incident, I was quickly relieved of my duties, as a beer was put into my hands in place of the rudder, which was fine with me at the time. The right hemisphere. The right brain hemisphere is in control of the left side of your body and is the more imaginative, creative side of the brain. It is nonverbal and intuitive, using pictures and visualizations rather than words, insight, and philosophical thinking. These are all attributes of the right hemisphere of the brain, pulling from the more creative and artistic areas of thought. The left hemisphere. The left hemisphere is in control of the right side of your body and is the more analytical and problem-solving side of the brain, responsible for language along with mathematical thinking. Corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is a good friend to the left and right brain hemispheres, as it is responsible for transmitting neural messages between them, allowing for communication between the two hemispheres. Cerebral cortex. I've saved the best for last. The cerebral cortex serves as the seat of our conscious, reasoning mind, responsible for higher thought processes. This developed part of the brain is what sets us apart from all other mammals. The cortex is divided into 4 lobes: the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. Each oversees the processing of different categories of sensory information, from visual processing, movement, speech, emotions, and so forth. The conscious reasoning mind imprints upon the subconscious mind. It takes it as its marching orders to manifest it to physical reality. Once again, I bring your attention to the fact the subconscious mind cannot distinguish the difference between what is real or imagined, and does not care if the tasks are for good or bad, and it never takes time off. It's constantly manifesting our current reality, whether we are actively aware and involved with the process or not. As Ernest Nightingale said, you can plant the seed of nightshade, deadly poison, or you can plant corn seeds, and that's what will grow. Immensely powerful. Every vision you've ever seen, awake or dreaming, your subconscious mind has recorded. It's a source of wisdom, intelligence, and healing power, beyond your wildest dreams. Up until the last 30 years or so, not much was known about the human brain. Your brain contains 100 billion nerve cells, give or take, forming trillions of connections. These connections are called synapses. These synaptic connections are formed when neurons form new dendrites and axons, the thread-like extensions that connect one brain cell to another. Neurons are specialized cells found within the nervous system. Their function is to relay information to muscle, gland, and nerve cells. This communication contact point is referred to as synapses. Our brains are not hardwired as previously believed. However, it is fact that your brain can be rewired. And this is a good thing. The old scientific belief was that the adult brain was hardwired, and after critical developmental periods in childhood, our brains were set and could change no further. As science has now proved, this belief is far from the truth. Yes, when we were young, our brains were more like a sponge absorbing information in the theta state, and yes, that's when many false and harmful paradigms first made their home in your brain. Our brains are also imprinted over centuries of years, with each evolving generation creating what is your present-day genetic memory. But the truth and the good news, recently scientifically proven, is that the adult brain has the ability to reorganize itself, both physically and functionally, forming new neural connections throughout life. This miraculous ability is called neural plasticity. There are no connecting wires in our brains, but there is circuitry throughout the living tissue. This circuitry is shaped and molded by our thoughts, memories, emotions, and experiences. More importantly, they're also reshaped by thoughts, desires, memories, and experiences. The more neuroscientists discover about the brain, the more they discover hidden powers. Our brain does not only interpret the world, it creates it. Whatever you can visualize, imagine, or desire can be yours if you understand the process of how to properly channel your mind and actions. This is the most important message of this book, The Secret, Think and Grow Rich, and others. Throughout our lifetime, it's possible for your brain to evolve, rewire, and improve to be more empowered. The gift is there for everyone. This potential is stock issue with every brain God hands out. However, your brain, unfortunately, cannot do what it thinks it cannot do. Here again, I'm talking about the conditioned schema scripts in our thinking and daily habits, the limits we needlessly restrain ourselves to. Let's talk about glycine and glutamate. Glycine. Glycine is an amino acid, a building block for protein. It's the simplest possible amino acid. It's not a well-known term, but our body is strengthened by the use of glycine every day and allows it to work properly. Glycine is the second most widespread amino acid found in human enzymes and proteins, which is why it has roles in nearly every part of the body. It is the major inhibitory neurotransmitter. It modulates excitatory neurotransmission, or brings to action a subtype receptor of glutamate. This receptor name is N-methyl D-aspartate, or NMDA. Glutamate. Glutamate is the most powerful and abundant excitatory neurotransmitter in the nervous system. It accounts for the majority of synaptic connections in the brain. Let's talk about the intellectual phase of the brain, where the old ingrained paradigms and schema scripts and negative neural pathways deal with the introduction of new responses, new ways of thinking, new actions and belief systems. As soon as you ask yourself, why do I think this way? Or that, why do I love this thing? And why do I hate that other thing? We enter into the element of intellect. Intellect is the way in which your brain has evolved the balance of both what we fear is not possible for us and what we desire and wish could be possible for us. Excitatory neurotransmitters like glutamate help strategize for what we desire, and inhibitory neurotransmitters like glycine help counterbalance to keep our emotions in check. Our intellect and emotions do the constant synaptic dance of yin and yang between the two inhibitory and excitatory neurotransmitters. There's a struggle and neurological drama that subtly rages on within your brain. The ongoing, ever-spinning carousel ride of interaction between intellect and emotion creates a state of internal discourse that resonates throughout your brain through every waking hour. The decision to be made is between favoring the more hardwired reaction response or new, unknown responses. This explains in scientific terms the struggle I keep mentioning between how our minds have been conditioned and programmed to the matrix and how our creative, imaginative mind wants to introduce new ways of thinking and being, but must meet up with the badass paradigms reverberating the negative, self-sabotaging schema scripts ingrained in our psychology. These are the gatekeepers of the subconscious mind and must be overcome to initiate real and empowering changes to our habits and overall way of thinking and living. Let's look at fight or flight versus rest and digest. We've all heard the term fight or flight, referring to our primal caveman days response of the nervous system. The saber-toothed tiger is chasing and wants to eat us, and our body reacts to the stress of the situation. Not so well known is the equally cool term rest and digest response. This system is locked into the more relaxed and chill functions of the body. When we are more centered and in harmony, connected to source energy, we are relaxed and chill. This state helps maintain long-term good health. These two systems exist within a larger system named the autonomic nervous system, which manages the function of our internal organs. Most people, unfortunately, hover in a stress-induced state of consciousness and can develop adrenal fatigue, where the fight-or-flight response is being activated too often, prompting our body's adrenal glands to respond, releasing large amounts of stress hormones like cortisol. Chronically elevated stress levels can long-term deplete your internal organs of materials they need to construct new neurotransmitters and hormones. The part of the autonomic nervous system responsible for fight or flight response is called the sympathetic nervous system, which prepares for the physical challenge, the fight, or prepares for retreat, the flight. The part of the autonomic nervous system responsible for the rest and digest response is called the parasympathetic system, which helps produce a state of balance in the body. In these modern times in the Western world, most people find themselves experiencing some level of chronic stress in their daily lives. The action of empowering your parasympathetic nervous system, in effect, reduces the impact of your sympathetic nervous system, which in turn reduces the stress on your immune and digestive system as well as your heart and more. Let's look at the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest and largest cranial nerve in the body, beginning at the base of the skull and extending throughout the body, regulating all major bodily functions. The vagus nerve interfaces with the parasympathetic nervous system to control your heart, lungs, and core area. This action can dissipate the body's cortisol levels and reduce stress as your body chills and relaxes. Here again is where the awesome power of meditation can be used to induce a state of calmness and relaxation, to stimulate your vagus nerve and activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Mindfulness meditation is effective, as well as meditations incorporating RB resistance breathing or chanting, for example, Om or Am. The practice of yoga is also a popular way to stimulate the vagus nerve. Even activities that you enjoy, like a good chess game or a nice relaxing spa day with a massage, or healthy exercise activities like running, skiing, swimming, biking, rollerblading, and so forth, help activate the rest and digest response, which is where we want to be as much as humanly possible. As Bobby McFerrin says, "Don't worry, be happy." Now, let's look at epigenetics. Epigenetics is the study of modification of gene expression, which is not caused by changes in the genetic DNA code itself. The old thinking of the scientific community was that genes were the end-all and be-all of what our personal genetic blueprint was to be, with no modifications or alterations. Recent studies contradict the old-school theory. Epigenetics is a fairly young science. We've known about the epigenome since the early 70s, but only in the last 20 years have scientists discovered the effect these epigenetic tags have on the human genome, and that this effect can, in turn, be passed on to future generations. Who you are is written in both pen and pencil. Things written in pen you can't change. That's DNA. But things written in pencil you can. We cannot control 30% of our genetic makeup. However, that means we can control 70% with things like lifestyle, diet, exercise, what we put on our skin, stress, and so forth. The epigenome sits on top of the genome. The epigenome is what tells your genes to switch on or off, like a light switch. Call out. Epigenetics means above genetics. The epigenome cannot change your DNA, but it can control which genes within different cells in your body are expressed. As gene controller, epigenetics is about the changes initiated throughout the course of your life and the genetic legacy to be passed down to your kids and grandkids. Life experiences can cause genes to awaken, become active, switch on, and also to go to sleep, become dormant, switch off. Every action throughout your daily life influences chemical modifications within your genes, some switched on, some switched off. Throughout your body there are literally billions of cells, each containing your DNA. Instructions are given to the cells from tiny hydrogen compounds called methyl groups. The methyl groups attach to a gene and can switch that gene off to non-expression or switch on to be active. In addition, there exist histones. Histones are proteins that the DNA spools and winds itself around. Histones control how loosely or tightly wound the DNA will be. If tight, the expression of that gene is repressed, and if loose, the expression of that gene is enhanced. The methyl groups work and manipulate as an on-off switch, whereas the histones are more like a volume knob, raising and lowering gene expression. They're like the software that gives instruction to genes, whereas the human genome, your encoded DNA, can be compared to the hard drive. The genome does all the heavy lifting, but the epigenome gives it its marching orders. The hardware stays the same throughout your life, but the software can be changed and modified throughout your life. Why is this good news? You can change your lifestyle and state of mind to have a huge impact on changing your epigenetic code to a more positive, healthier, empowering state. Through mind power and alignment of the body and mind, you're not confined to your genetics. We have the power to alter and rewire our epigenetic code. Rise up to the genetic call to arms. Go deep within to evolve who you are, how you act and think, to break free from the matrix. That is, expand your enlightenment and self-awareness. Turbocharge for high personal vibrational energy for both attracting and projecting to and from the universe. Let's take a look at the different brain wave vibrations and frequencies of the human mind. There are 5 states of consciousness for the human brain. In order of highest to the lowest frequency, they are gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Gamma is the highest frequency, and this is where your conscious mind is doing most of the work for intricate learning and high processing of information. Beta. This is also the frequency used primarily by the conscious mind while we're awake for logical and critical thinking, writing, reading, and socialization. In beta, we're perking up our neocortex and trying to create meaning between our outer world and the inner world. This is the mechanism of the brain to create coherence between what's going on outside of us and what's going on inside of us when we're functioning. In reality, you're creating beta wave patterns. Most people live and are most affected and influenced by their outer world, taking life as it comes at them. The challenge is to go deep within your inner world, where the key to change lies, and manifest your outer world as you envision it to be. Alpha. This is the frequency that connects our conscious and subconscious mind. Alpha's frequency range aligns between beta and theta and promotes feelings of deep relaxation. When you close your eyes and begin to illuminate the internal environment, you begin to reduce the amount of sensory information that's coming into your brain. Your brainwave patterns begin to slow down to the alpha brainwaves. In alpha, the inner world tends to be more real than the outer world. Theta. This is the frequency when the conscious mind gets out of the way and the subconscious mind takes over in a deeply relaxed, semiotic, meaning-making state. It is during this state of consciousness, and to some degree alpha state as well, that the subconscious mind can be reprogrammed by means of meditation and listening to subliminal recordings while falling asleep. The great benefit of this technique is that you can reprogram your subconscious mind with very little effort. Delta. This represents the deepest state of sleep and relaxation. Delta waves are the slowest recorded waves in the human brain. In this state of deep sleep, your body can repair and do maintenance of tissue, bone, and muscle, and add strength to your immune system. So, how is it exactly that you may very well be living in the grand sum of others' beliefs and habits, hypnotized, spinning around blindly in the matrix on mental autopilot? Our brain's ability to transition through various states of consciousness has a huge influence on how effectively we manage stress in our lives, how we focus, and the quality of sleep we experience. Up to the age of approximately 7 years old, your brain was predominantly in the alpha and theta state of mind, which is basically a receptive hypnotic meditation mode to gather and absorb information. That is why it's not uncommon for a 5 or 6-year-old to have learned to speak 4 languages. These are the years that your mind develops and establishes a large array of negative neural pathways and paradigms. You learn all the negative habits your parents learned and passed on to you, and the bad habits, thoughts, and beliefs your culture and environment imprinted on you while in those early years. Your subconscious mind was more in everyday use, absorbing and storing every experience. Once established, these bad neural pathways are then reinforced throughout the rest of your life. 95% of who you are by the time you're in your 30s is a set of unconscious thought imprints, neural pathways, and paradigms imprinted within your subconscious mind. These things are all happening behind the scenes of your actual awareness. You're living your life day to day thinking this is you, when you are, in fact, yes, spinning within the matrix, living a program based on other people's principles and thoughts. After you turn 7 years old, when the brain starts switching to a more beta state, the conscious analytical mind then takes the reins, and your subconscious emotional mind, though immensely more powerful, takes a very diminished role for the hours that you're awake and living. The funny thing about the conscious, thinking, waking, reasoning mind is that it too often gets in the way and obstructs the all-powerful subconscious mind from doing its thing. This is why meditation and mind power techniques are so key as a means to bitch-slap your conscious mind. Tell it to chill out, calm the fuck down, and get in alignment, so the subconscious mind can do its thing.